Hi, and welcome to the Mainframe Book Club. I have with me today Nick. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Nick. I'll adjust my posture here. Um, I am a computer programmer. I identify as a computer programmer. I live in the United States, in the Midwest. I'm 33 years old. I recently started saying that I've been programming for most of my life. I did get into programming at a pretty young age. I got into mainframes in college. I participated in the IBM Master the Mainframe competition, which these days is called Z Explore. I thought mainframes were cool. They were really different from any other kind of computing environment that I'd experienced up to that point, and I decided to build a career out of it. I ended up getting my first job out of college was at IBM, so kind of the nexus of mainframe development. I found myself on the Jazz 2 development team, which is based in Rochester, Minnesota. And yeah, I was on that team for 9 years until I eventually walked away in 2024.
Well, I think that
Um,
brings me on to a good way to introduce today's topic. So, what we're going to discuss today is burnout, and you've kindly agreed to come on to share, and you've offered to help anyone who thinks they might be going through burnout, which I think was really kind of you. And what we've got, what I like to think of, I'm wearing the t-shirt, and we talk about a mainframe community, and that's what makes us special. And I think this community coming together is really what separates us from everyone else. That's what makes us the mainframe and makes us special. So, with that in mind, Nick, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you experienced burnout and what it was like for you?
yeah, sure. I'd love to share that. And yeah, really, what's driving me to talk about this with you, Andy, is I want to help people. I don't want people to kind of walk the same path that I took. I have a lot of regrets about some of the things I've said, some of the things I did over really the past couple of years. And yeah, when did I first start feeling burned out? I think because I joined IBM in 2015, and things were going pretty well, I'd say, for the first few years. And I think I really started to feel that burnout. It was probably in 2022. It was really when things started to not feel like they were going so well in my work life. And it kind of coincides with the birth of my first son in 2022 is really when I started feeling some burnout at work. And I think yeah, becoming a parent, it's such a big change, and there's just so many unexpected feelings that you start having when you become a parent.
Do you know, there's a
So
question I didn't ask you, Nick, when we had a chat before. What's Do you have like parental leave rights in the US? Because one
yeah.
thing people often don't realize is that in the EU, we've got often better terms and conditions in the workplace.
hmm Yeah, actually, IBM had amazing benefits for new parents, and it was both moms and dads. I think you basically get the same benefits. I think mothers get some additional benefits, especially in terms of like breastfeeding and that kind of thing. But so I actually got 12 weeks, and I think that's basically the minimum. Well, I guess I'm not sure because in the U.S. we have something called FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, which I think is legislation that went through in like the early 90s, I think. So it's relatively recent. But yeah, I got 12 weeks of parental leave when I became a parent, and I was able to start it basically as soon as our son was born. and we could use it however we wanted. So initially, I took 4 weeks off of work to be there for my kid, for my wife, and for myself. And then I eased myself back into a more regular schedule with my team. So
Yeah, I think this burnout conversation is an interesting one. And the reason I think that is we've heard all about the famous, oh, there's a $3 trillion skills crisis, and
oh
everyone's
gosh,
talking about this is the issue and this is the problem. And I think what we're going to see is burnout's the sleeping nemesis that we all need to watch out for, that's on the horizon, that could be coming for us. Nobody's talking about it, nobody's thinking about it, and it's coming. And I'm going to give a couple of reasons because we spoke about this. And I think we've seen COVID where people were working from home. We've seen AI, which introduces a more agile working practice, putting more on people. We now see remote working, hybrid teams, outsourcing and managed service providers. All of that means, as you have probably said to me as well, is that it makes it harder for your manager because
mm,
the mainframe's changing, workplace is changing, but
yeah,
with remote working and hybrid teams and distributed teams and all these other reasons, you end up that it's much harder now for a manager to actively manage, which is what they used to do. So
yeah.
it's much harder because they see you for maybe 20, 30 minutes, an hour at most in a Teams meeting. And if you speak twice in a team of 8, then you've probably spoken quite a lot. And it's very difficult for a manager as well to
Yeah,
spot signs
definitely.
of burnout.
Yeah, and so actually, when I joined IBM, I was in person. I physically had an office up in Rochester, and yeah, I saw my manager literally every day. He actually had a ritual where in the morning he would go around and knock on everyone's door and kind of check in with everybody. And during COVID, that's actually when I went fully remote, and I never went back. And so yeah, definitely, I feel like yeah, I lost a little bit of a connection there with my manager.
And I
Um,
think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to bring on one more hot topic. I
sure.
think if you're in the mainframe, you can't have escaped the two letters A and I. Everyone's talking about AI being the next big thing, but it is making some fundamental changes to our workplace. It's
Yeah,
putting much more, I think, on people to be agile, to adopt, to change.
yeah.
And
I
it's,
think it is. It's putting so much more pressure on the people doing the work. And I think like if I were to point at like the straw that broke the camel's back, I think it really was in 2024. It was this AI revolution, and I think that's really what pushed me over the edge. It was all of this fear, all of this uncertainty about how this was going to affect me, how this is going to affect my team, and yeah, the expectation to do more for less.
I wouldn't say there's an elephant in the room here because I've seen something similar when we first started outsourcing and having teams abroad and we saw issues. There was also this elephant in the room that when things went wrong, we had to all make out that everything was perfect for the senior managers because they'd heavily bought in to outsourcing and remote teams. And we weren't allowed to tell them, hey, this isn't working as well as you think it is. We
Mhm.
had to all just suck it up and take a lot more on. And there's a lot of things here that people don't appreciate with AI. And we had a chat off camera before this. And I think, as you've mentioned, AI is basically making people much more agile. You have to be. So you need agile work practices. You've got to be constantly changing. And what many people don't realize, and we had this discussion because it's an interesting little fact, is that whilst AI is coming in and it's maybe cutting off some of the opportunities in the mainframe for the new people coming in, people are deploying AI and replacing junior roles or taking certain functions from them. it's going to do one more challenge that we discussed, and that is that AI could burn out young people much more quickly than new to Z coming in. And this is a big thing, right? That if you're coming into the mainframe and you're new, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to succeed, and AI is going to require you to be much more agile.
Yeah.
And it's actually a fact that young people coming in will be the ones that are going to struggle most with AI and agile work practices because they just don't know how to cope with the increasing demand. They feel they should
Right.
constantly meet the challenges and constantly be able to cope.
Yeah. Right.
And they're the ones that are most likely to burn out here.
Because they don't have those coping mechanisms developed.
That's exactly the issue here. And I think this is, if people take one key message away, they weren't necessarily thinking on taking away from this conversation. It's that with AI, you need to also look at your new hires more than your existing hires because they could burn out first. They could burn out with these agile
Yeah.
work practices.
I think there is so much truth to that. And just from experience going into IBM, it always felt like there was this expectation for me to kind of bring in all of these new technologies that the young people just knew how to use, like things like Git, things like Python, and there was it always to me it always felt like an unreasonable and unfair expectation that that I was kind of coming in and rejuvenating the lifeblood of the company and the team a little bit, and yeah, I think it's so easy for someone new in the world of mainframes to kind of get lost and overburdened with these kinds of expectations.
Yeah, and I think one thing people should appreciate here, because we talked about this before we've filmed today, was that you were saying to me that it has a big burnout has a big impact on you as a human being. And this
Yeah,
is what we often forget, right? That we're humans working.
yeah,
There's a human impact when projects go wrong. There's a human impact when humans go wrong. And
yes,
when we suffer from burnout, as you mentioned to me, and I'm going to just recap the three things, and you might want to expand on it a little, is you said
yeah,
to me there's a mental aspect, there's a physical aspect, and there's
right.
social aspects from burnout. And I think all three of them as interesting in a way. So, do you want to tell us anything about how that kind of felt for you?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I want to help people. And I think one of the most important things is to recognize burnout in yourself. And obviously, I'm not a trained psychologist or anything like that, but I did start going to therapy when I started to start having some of these concerns about my and initially it was my mental health. I felt like I my brain was going a million miles an hour. I had all of these ideas, all of these crazy ideas that I wanted to implement, and all of these changes I wanted to see in the mainframe world. And like I said, my brain was just going a million miles an hour all the time, and that's when I think that's when I started to recognize that I might have a problem. And the other two aspects of health, social health and physical health, definitely the one that made me realize like, hey, I'm getting burned out is when my social life started to be impacted by work and again my racing thoughts and changes I wanted to see. And oh yes, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, like this coincides with me becoming a dad. And I yeah, I there were times that I just didn't feel present in my family, and that really scared me. And it if you feel like work is starting to affect your social life and your personal mental well-being, that's when you know it's time to make some kind of change. And I think that's the most important thing to do when you start feeling burned out is you need to make some kind of change. and that can mean something different to everybody. So,
And I think that sort of takes us on slightly to, we had a conversation before we've recorded today, and one of the things we talked about was in the UK there's a kind of, they do it every year, a campaign saying to people, check in on your buddies. So you could do
right,
this at work, it's the same thing. And it
right,
says men often like to say that everything's okay, even if they're struggling like mad. They'll say, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. And that campaign simply said, just ask 3 times, ask your buddy, check in 3 times, are you okay? Don't just accept the first answer. If you think there's a problem, check in on them 3 times. And
hmm,
if at the third time they're still saying they're okay, then that's all good. But sometimes people open up on the second or third time of being asked. And when you ask and you just, you're just being friendly, it helps, because having
yeah,
someone there with remote working, especially as you were saying, I
hmm,
think one of the challenges is you can't see that you're focused on work 24/7. Nobody in an office or no one sitting in their home when you're at home can see how you're suffering.
right. So
The
yeah,
only time you,
I think
yeah,
I mean that's one specific action that I think managers can make to their underlings, but I think and we talked about this earlier. I think colleagues can do so much to recognize burnout in each other, and I think it's something that we should be looking out for in our coworkers. And sometimes they're the ones who know, they're the ones who know you the best, right? They're the ones who you go home and play video games with, or whatever outside of work. So I think, and in my specific case, I knew that I was getting burned out, and I directly told my manager, hey, I have so much on my plate, and half of it is stuff that I have to do because it's part of my job, and half of it is stuff that I want to do because it's, all of these crazy ideas and wish lists that you kind of create over time working. And yeah, I told my manager I'm burned out. So
and
so recognizing burnout in yourself and others, that's step one. But doing something about it is the harder part, I think.
and I think burnout, as it's always been, there's been advice. If you've ever been a manager or led teams, then you'll know there's a series of advice. One of them is to look for changes in how people are when they're
Hmm.
working. Are they engaging more? Are they engaging less?
Yeah.
Is there questioning dissatisfaction in duties? Are they unhappy or moaning? Can you observe? It's a change of behavior that you're
Yeah.
really looking for as a manager.
Yeah.
But
And it
it's
can
so
be
hard now.
right, right. Especially with these fully remote teams, it can be
Yeah.
so hard. You've really lost, I guess, that pulse, I guess, on each other's well being.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I know personally, when I've worked before, we would have all gone and we all played badminton together. You know,
mhm. Yeah,
just a bit of team camaraderie. No one was a great badminton player, but just a bit of exercise helps recharge the batteries. But we've lost that with remote working and managed
yeah,
services and outsourcing. We've lost this.
right. That human connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think one opinion I'd like to express that might be a little bit different is I personally, I've been engaging in online communities since I was 14 or 15 years old. And some of my closest friends, some of the people who I share some of my deepest thoughts and secrets with, they're people I've never actually met in person. They're people I've never shaken their hands. And I guess so my unpopular opinion is you see a lot of push for a hybrid work environment. And that's really what my team at IBM transitioned to around COVID times. We went from basically it was an entirely in-person team. We did have a few people out in Poughkeepsie and one guy up in Canada, and we kind of went from that kind of a model to more of a hybrid model. And for me, going hybrid was hard because I had, and I feel like this might be a generational thing or an experiences thing, but during COVID, I became so active on Slack with, I would say, a subset of my team, and it tended to be the people around my age, and we talked to each other on Slack nonstop, and we had kind of unplanned meetings where we would hop on a call, on a video call, and help each other with whatever problems we were working through. But then there was the other half of the team, which was a little more old school, where you were expected to schedule a meeting in advance, and it was much more formal. And I kind of felt myself drifting away from those members of my team. So I guess so. My unpopular opinion is I think it's easiest to recognize burnout in teams that are either fully remote or fully in person. I that's kind of the that's kind of the opinion that I've been forming over
I
the past 5 years or so.
I tell you what, I'll throw my unpopular opinion out.
Sure, I love it.
I and we haven't discussed this, but I just feel that ADHD is something that I think is more is more common across mainframe
Mm.
communities
Mm.
than others. And one aspect for that is that we've got the H stands for hyper focus, which is great because we can hyper focus on something and get really into it. And I think there's a lot of people in certain roles that probably do have traits of ADHD,
Yeah.
and that H of hyper focus is what's allowed them to go into those roles. But they're
Mm.
also now the prime candidates to burn out because
Yeah,
of
they're the
hyper
people.
focus.
Yeah, they're the ones who make me worried, for sure, because they can get into these modes where yeah, mainframes are all they think about, and next thing you know, 16 hours later, they're still on Discord or whatever,
Well,
engaging with the mainframe community. Or
this is exactly the problem. And I think the only way that you could maybe, and I'm no expert here, but one thing I think you should be as a manager considering is to look at the login times that your employees who are working remotely are doing.
yeah,
If you see them spending a lot more time than is healthy, then I think you need to say to them, hey, we're looking at your login times. You're spending way too long logged in. Take a break.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
don't, just finish it today on time, no
yeah,
matter what the
yeah,
issue is, because otherwise you end up in this kind of crazy world of 80, 90-hour weeks
yeah.
and burnout.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I talked about making a change earlier, and the big change that I ended up making after, well, first of all, the biggest change, the biggest change was finally walking away and resigning from IBM, and I left with nothing lined up. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I kind of had this consulting company that I started on the side, but there really wasn't any income and I needed to make some money. So I made a change and I started working at the post office as a mail carrier. And that that was such a I mean, I'm still getting used to it. But one thing I love about working at the post office is I can walk into work and do my job. I'm paid hourly rather instead of a salary.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm sitting there working, 8 or 9 or 10 hours into my shift, I know I'm making $25 an hour or whatever. Or once I get into overtime, I'm making $50 an hour. So I feel like it when you're working in tech, when you're working in mainframes, I feel like a lot of people are working. They're being paid salary, a salary, and it can make it really easy to burn out when you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a limit on the number of hours you're working. Like for me, the money just, I don't know. No matter how many hours you work, you're still you're still being paid some number of dollars a paycheck. And I saw this in one of my coworkers. I had a coworker who I personally think was suffering from a lot of imposter syndrome. I don't think he would ever admit that, but he came into work. He was always the very first person in our building. He was the one who turned the lights on. So something like 6 a.m. he would get into work. And he was also almost always the very last person to leave. He was the one who turned the lights off. And he worked 12-hour days just nonstop. And it's because he felt like he had to. He felt like he had to justify that salary he was getting. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing that can contribute to burnout is yeah, not having limits, I guess, with the number of hours you can put in. And sometimes even people brag about how many hours they're working and working out of, working in the middle of the night or on vacation, checking, always being available, those kinds of things.
I when I feel like I'm getting too dragged in or there's too much going on, one thing I really enjoy doing is painting, not pictures, but walls. And
Oh, yeah.
everyone says, what do you mean? I hate painting. But for me, this is just a personal thing, but I really enjoy painting walls. And the reason being, as a mainframer, in every role I've done, it's very hard to actually see the actual
Yes.
results from my efforts.
Yes. Right.
No matter what you
Right.
do, someone's either on the end of a phone or it's part of a project, or it's very hard to see what you've actually contributed and how you've shaped something. But
Right.
when you just take yourself completely out and paint a wall, as soon as that brush goes onto the wall and you see the wall color change,
Yeah, you can see it. You
it's an
can,
instant,
yeah.
yeah. And
And it's
I'm
so
not saying that,
satisfying. It's so satisfying too
yeah,
to fill in that last square or
yeah.
whatever.
I'm not saying everyone should come and paint my house for me, but I am saying that you should like have a look
Man,
for
I, w- I
for
was gonna ask
something.
you.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you if you could paint a couple of rooms in my house that I've been putting off.
Yeah, I'm getting good at it now. But
But yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to see the fruits of your efforts sometimes with the mainframe. And yeah, that's another thing I love about delivering the mail. Like I go into work and I have 2 or 3 trays of mail and I can see myself making progress. And when I get to the end and I have that empty truck, I'm driving back to the office, it's such a great feeling. And yeah,
and
it's
that's exactly what we said. It's releasing the endorphins from a little bit of exercise, and you can actually see the benefits of your work. So
right.
there's some takeaways for people. If you're feeling a little bit burnt out, we're not therapists, but we can suggest do something that you enjoy, something where you can see a physical result from it.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, anything that makes you feel good, I think, is a great way to disconnect from work.
And do you know what, Nick? I've run out of questions. So the last question I always ask everyone is there a question that I should have asked that I haven't?
Is there a
Is there
question
anything
that you
else you
should
think
have
I should have
asked?
asked that's cropped up today?
Oh, man, I'm trying to think. I should have had one prepared for you.
Well, the only thing I could think of is that at my previous workplace, one suggestion I put forward was to have like a coffee morning into teams so you get to know colleagues, especially if you're working in different countries or remotely. Having like a little coffee morning where, I don't know, you do an online quiz together or you do something that's not specifically work related, but just 15 minutes or so, meet someone in another country or meet a colleague that you can't normally speak to. It just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something some of my colleagues and I did, and I think some people like at least myself, I can be a little intimidated just like getting together with some people to just chat and drink coffee. Like I would rather have something to do. So something my colleagues and I would do a lot is we would just play a random game together.
Yeah.
And we did this on some regular cadence. It wasn't every day, but it was like a couple times a week. And we would just play these stupid online games. Like a lot of times we'd play like these typing games, or we would have competitions to see who could type the fastest. And I don't know. I like that kind of thing personally. But I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Definitely for hybrid or remote teams is to have something like that, just to keep a pulse on each
Yeah.
other.
And it's also a good way then to be able to check in on colleagues because you can see when you
Right.
do these little coffee breaks, just 15 minutes in a week or every fortnight, it's a great way just to be able to check in on people and see that they're having a break, that they're
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best way to recognize some kind of change is to establish that some kind of baseline. Like this is how this person normally behaves before they've had their coffee and after they've had their coffee. And yeah,
Well, Nick, I think the only thing I should do now is to finish the interview by saying, firstly, thank you for coming on. And secondly, thank you for agreeing to help the community if anyone
yeah, for
feels like
sure,
they're
for
feeling burnt
sure,
out or wants to chat. Talking to someone is a great first step. Recognize your problems
definitely.
and talk to someone. So
Yeah,
yes, that's
and
really helpful.
yeah, and I think to those people out there who might feel burned out, like I think it's just important to be honest with yourself. Don't try to push through it. Seek help. The other thing I wanted to say is, like it's so important to rely on your colleagues. But one mistake I feel like I made was leaning on them a little too much, rather than getting to the point where I knew I needed to walk away and not doing it. I feel like I burned so many bridges, just so many relationships that I don't think I'll ever be able to rebuild. But
Well,
don't get to
hopefully,
that
Nick,
point.
hopefully we're a community, and as a community, that's what you
Yeah.
do. You come together and you recognize and understand these issues.
Yeah, for sure. So I really appreciate this opportunity to chat about this, Andy. I think this is such an important topic right now. So, and if anyone gets any benefit out of this discussion, I'm so happy. And like you said, reach out to me if you want to talk about it.
Lovely. Nick, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.